Welcome to This Moment with Lisa and Caroline. Welcome. It's so good to have you here, whether you're watching the replay or joining us live. We are here to awaken the core of the feminine force, and it's very exciting. This morning, it's Caroline's turn to share her story. And what I would like to know from Caroline, and hopefully you will too, is how did you start a new way of mothering, and what did you do? Like, what was your journey when it came to that introducing a new way of mothering into your life?
Yeah, great question, Lisa. Thanks very much, and hi everyone. I was thinking about this afternoon, trying to peel back the layers because I have a 16-year-old, nearly 17-year-old now, and a 14-year-old, nearly 15-year-old. So to look back and to reflect on when I changed the whole kind of philosophy around mothering, I would say it went back to when I started to realize that maybe there was anxiety building in the house, and that, the communication and connection wasn't as free flowing as I thought it should be. And I started kind of, because I have that kind of artistic mind, maybe, and research mind and designer mind, I started to kind of look into kind of deconstructing maybe what was happening, and I suppose I realized that, I think I started to look back into my own past, my own childhood, and thinking of, the way I was raised, and, the atmosphere I was raised in, and the dynamics I was raised in, and how that affected me as a child, and then how that might be showing up in my own mothering style, what was good about that and what wasn't so good about it, and kind of really starting to educate myself around, like, the kind of patterns within your family dynamic, I suppose, So then I realized that I think I hadn't been aware that I was actually quite anxious myself, that I had a kind of a heightened anxiety, like a kind of, when you were sitting at resting, that actually it was like as if there was a car that was revving all the time, like it was like kind of buzzing, nearly as such, and that actually, when I did that was kind of keeping me on this go mode all the time. So I was always going, doing, I'd rarely sit down. I was always kind of up at the kitchen sink kind of thing, kind of tidying the house or tidying the floor or time, what I mean? It was always go, do all the time. And then when I did sit then, there was this kind of buzzy kindness, and I suppose then when you're at that kind of, that in that state, it takes very little for you to kind of feel overwhelmed, that kind of way. So when something happens, then you're very, I suppose you're kind of, you're not that far off a kind of a tipping point that, like if you're in the red zone, we'll say, that kind of way, say if there's like a green zone and a red zone. So I realized that there was something happening there, and I wanted to start looking into, because I was having migraines and I had, stomach issues and stuff like that. And I was trying to get help with that, but then I started connecting both, that, there was kind of a big anxiety. So I got interested then in meditation and in mindfulness and neuroscience and stuff like that. And I realized that I had the capacity then to maybe to calm my nervous system down. So I started to really invest time in that, in my own state, my state of mind, my state, and my calmness, and how I felt in my own body, we'll say, and how that then reflected with my mothering, my style. So I found the more I practiced, and I made special kind of time in the morning before everybody got up to kind of do that, and I started yoga as well, and I really kind of felt great relief pretty quickly from that, actually, You know, it was amazing actually that when I learned the techniques and I became aware of it, that I was able to calm down my nervous system because I have
Yeah.
a kind of I naturally have a calm disposition. My personality is calm, but my nervous system had a kind of a heightened anxiety in it, you know, that was probably from my childhood experiences, you know, that were kind of undigested or whatever. So that was kind of making the home situation kind of stressful. So that that would show up in like whenever anything would happen that I think would be, you know, maybe too loud or too kind of exuberant or something like that, I'd find I'd want to dampen it down and keep it quiet or something, you know, that kind of way, because it was me that was reacting to it. So I suppose when I started to kind of do that, um, I just had much more freedom then to be able to respond in a more controlled way, like in a more, you know, I got my power back as such, you know, and I was able to be more effective in making conscious decisions around what I was able to do because I was kind of level headed and I was calm, but it was just the nervous system had this anxiety in it. My body was in an anxious state, my actual body, you know. So that was really the start of it when I realized I was starting self-aware of my own state and my own composition, kind of like a painting again, like, you know,
Yeah.
how I was, you know, kind of deconstructing myself and seeing, you know, what was working, what wasn't working, where I needed help, and, you know, what could support me in that, you know, in my own health and well-being, I guess, you know, in a holistic way, you know. And then that because I invested in that then because that was going to help with the kids and with, you know, my relationships with them, and that improved hugely then because I was able to be that safe space for them then with their emotional needs. Yeah.
Wow. That's so amazing. I'm just like remembering, you know, before I probably changed the way I mothered as well,
Yeah.
that you've just sort of, yeah, actually, I used to feel like that too because I was people used to say I was so calm. And I
Yeah.
did, I felt like on the outside, I felt like I was calm, but on the inside, that was a totally different story.
Yeah.
My tolerance level was like I had this like really short band of
Yeah.
tolerance for noise and aggression, and it seemed like there was a
Yes.
lot of aggression around me all the time because I had boys and everyone was
Yeah.
loud and you know, and I stood, I really, for me, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel safe. I didn't, you know, it was really hard for me to be in that situation.
Yeah.
So that is just like such an amazing story. And I love the way that you said the state, and then changing, being aware of your state,
Yeah.
because that's absolutely something that I noticed that was key for me. It was like the awareness of where I was at in any moment and what I was actually feeling.
Yeah.
Gave me so much more empowerment because I was able to change that if I needed to. I actually had the power to, I didn't have to wait for my kids to change or my husband to change. I
Yeah.
could actually change the way I felt right here and now.
Yeah.
And that was just so, that just changed everything, really did,
Yeah.
you know, because you can turn up in your most empowered self and you can turn up with clarity.
Yeah.
So, you know, that and so go on.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of just thought of it there gears that, you know, like in you're driving a car and you can choose what gear you want to put it
Yeah.
into, like,
Yeah.
you know, so you can choose it, you know, to put it in a low gear or in a high gear if you want to go fast. So it's not
Yeah.
that you should be you know, like have to be sitting all the time and in meditation all the time, but it's just that when you put yourself into that low gear for certain parts of the day, then you're able to go into the high gear and be optimal at that gear as well, you
Yes.
know, when you would go
Yeah.
fast as well,
Yeah.
but you just have the fuel to do it. You know, you have that state conscious awareness
Yeah.
within the different states to what you want to be in, and you can move up gears as you go, kind of thing, you know. Yeah, so it's that conscious awareness of what state I'm going to put in. Like even we were talking before this, like feeling that sometimes when you're overworked that, you know, I have to go down a couple of gears because I've been in top gear too much. I need to come down
Yes.
a few gears,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like
That's
it's
what we've
just
been
having
talking
that
about
awareness,
there.
checking in all the time,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's the build up of emotion, right? Like, so you're creating this, it's the difference between feeling flow and feeling easy and feeling a resistance. And the resistance is the, like you mentioned, you said undigested emotion from childhood. So for me, it was the emotion, it's the same thing, the emotion that I hadn't dealt with, that I just needed to process. And it's all still sitting there being activated. Every time I have a similar situation that creates that feeling in my body, all of the other feelings from my past coming to land in this moment. So I'm not just dealing with the one event, really. I'm dealing with the emotional result of hundreds of events all of my life that I never dealt with, and they all come to land right now so that I can actually heal them if I choose to and if I'm conscious enough. So that's all going on behind us while we're trying to be a mum in everyday life and make breakfast, so get our kids out the door. And they got their little bit of resistance. So like all of that goes on in the same moment, and like to free yourself from the emotional stuff that's happening and just be present and be in flow, to free yourself from that, that is the optimal state for life, let alone mothering. Like that is an optimal state.
That's how I ended up writing Declare Republic a Free State of Mind, because it was about that, like freeing your state, freeing yourself when you can take control of the state that you're in, to be able to get into that free state. And it's not that you're always going to be in a perfect mood, but just to have those conscious awareness of the state of mind that you're in, and to be able to move from one state to the next, or
just to work with your feelings, right?
Yeah, and to release what needs to be released, and to kind of experience what needs to be experienced in the now, kind of thing, like, so whatever comes up, you're okay with it, that it's, you have that capacity to be able to be with what is, and
it's such a beautiful opportunity, isn't it? Like I think that was what really helped me shift, was like, rather than fighting it and thinking, oh my God, this is too hard to do all this, it was like, actually, this is an opportunity for me to heal and for me to feel more free in my life and to be a better mum.
Yeah, and that's why I think what we're creating is kind of very exciting, because, on that journey, I suppose, like, there was lots of, like I talked about before, the way books and psychologists and different topics that you would be trying to learn and take more knowledge from, but it's not that, none of that will make any difference if you haven't done that inner work. And if my state hadn't changed from that nervous state of being, no book or no,
you're just adding.
Nothing else from
you
the
add pressure,
outside.
don't you?
No, exactly. More to-do lists and things that
that's right.
It's actually the state of being that you need to change. You need to kind of start to invest in, kind of really kind of looking into that. And then it's actually quite logical when you start to do the work, even though when people talk about meditation, it seems a bit woo-woo, but to me, it was so concrete and obvious, like that, I suppose the way that the atmosphere where you were, how you grew up, and the kind of atmosphere and environment that was, you kind of you're comfortable in that, even though when you look back as a child, how did you actually feel in that environment? You probably felt very anxious in that environment. So that's not a great environment to continue, that kind of way. So you need to kind of like look at that and kind of really start to look at the adverse effects maybe that had on you, and what supports can you bring in. Like, sometimes people need counseling, they need resources in different ways, we'll say, like, or even like meditations, or depending on what is uncovered, we'll say, when they start doing
So
that.
it's very intuitive, isn't it? Like, for me, it was like what I needed. I became very aware of, most of the time I was doing my own work and doing my own emotional awakening, really. But then every now and then it'd be like, okay, I need to reach out and I need to get some support to do this. So I wasn't giving my power away to the person I was working with, because I was still very consciously choosing to do this for myself, and they were just the support person. So I didn't look at them as like, they have all the answers, I'm going to them to get fixed, because that dynamic is, I believe, something that we need to shift on this planet, because it's unhealthy. So it's coming into ourselves, and we use people and we need each other as well, like, just to be able to talk to each other, right? Because there's so much healing that happens when someone sits in emotional presence with us.
Just a really good friend, even just to listen to you and to kind of, I think in conversation like that, so much could come out, just talking about how you're feeling and being comfortable about that, and kind of uncovering things that you weren't aware of. Like, it's amazing how just a good friend can do,
Yes.
just a listening ear kind of
You go,
thing,
have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yes, so true. So true.
Yeah,
So true. Well, that was a great, juicy conversation. I'd love to invite the listeners, and hello to you all. Hello, Nicole. Hello, I'm not sure what your name is, but free your mind and the rest will follow. I like that. I'd love to invite everyone to join us this week. We have one more free webinar coming up on Thursday night in the Northern Hemisphere and Friday morning in the Southern Hemisphere. And this is about designing your unique design. So we will talk more about how to actually step into this other way of mothering, and we'd love to have you. Just register at the link below. Carolyn, it's been a joy as usual. Such a beautiful way to start my day. And I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope everyone else has a beautiful day too. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. And we have a guest on tomorrow night, do we? For our Feminine Force
We
Wheels?
do.
Yeah.
We do.
So tune back in tomorrow night.
Guest.
Yeah, so it's a mystery
Yes, we do. That's
We'll
right.
be back on for an hour tomorrow night.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
UK time or Irish time.
Yeah.
And so tune in and we'll see you again soon. Thanks everybody for
Thanks,
listening.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.